So we are starting now, and it is for me such an honor and a pleasure to introduce to Dr. Loralee Scott from Seeing Red. And I have been in two of the programs with Dr. Loralee Scott, and it is amazing. It was amazing. It is such a deep and profound and revealing and important work. And so thank you so much for being with our community, which is, we have hundreds of women from Portuguese-speaking countries, Portugal, Brazil mainly, but we are going to have more and more adding to our community, Portuguese-speaking country, the people. We are going to have more English-speaking people as well. So this is a worldwide movement, and the theme of the feminine, the conscious feminine, is such an important and vital to our own lives and to our global communities. So I would start by introducing you, Loralee, if it's okay.
Sure. Thank you so much.
I am in Portugal, based here now. My name is Vera Faria, and I would like them to. I'm a little bit nervous because it's such an honor and it's such a delight. But I'll try to do my best. So Dr. Loralee Scott is the founder and director of Seeing Red, and a former executive director of the SEC Institute. That's where I first met you. She has developed and delivered several courses, conferences, focused on a psychological understanding of creativity, of trauma, and identity. Loralee Scott works with archetypal pattern analysis, and she works in several countries in the world. She also has a wonderful work with dance pedagogy, allying and bringing together creativity theory, Jungian psychology, brain science, and has a past artistic work, including a wonderful dance theater production. So I find this work very complete, and also your experience as a dancer and as a dance teacher is wonderful, because I also believe that the body has to also individuate, not only the head. So it is so much of the feminine. The body is symbolically the feminine also, like the spirit used to be, or the soul is feminine, the spirit was masculine, so to speak. So the body, the embodied soul, is such a process, a feminine process. And so thank you very much, and I receive you in this circle, because we are a circle within circles of consciousness that brings light to these themes and revelation to our lives. So I would like to start. I don't know if you'd like to say something.
Well, I just want to start by saying thank you to you and to everyone who will be tuning into this conversation. And I think the work that you're doing and these kinds of conversations are critical to our evolution as women and as men and women in this beautiful broken world that we all share. And I do just need to make a correction. I'm not officially doctor. I have a graduate degree. I have an MFA, which is a doctorate in humanities and artistic studies. So just Loralee is fine, Vera, but I'm thrilled and honored to be here and to be having this really important conversation and sharing in the work that you're doing in the world.
Thank you very much. How did you came into this work? How did you were attracted to the universe of the feminine archetypes, to this magical universe and work?
That's a huge question, Vera. Let me try to condense the answer. So my My background started as a young girl, as you said, in the world of dance. I literally grew up in a dance studio. So I was a classically trained, Vaganova trained dancer and went on to do a number of different styles by the time I was of dance, including African dance, including just about every style of dance, you name it. I loved to dance as a little girl. That was my world. By the time I was 11 or 12, I was going into New York City. I was training with Broadway choreographers. And then, skipping over all the details, I wound up transitioning from that world of dance and theater, which is really an archetypal world. Anyone who's danced knows that there is a phrase that dancers use, and it's called, it's making it dance. There is that moment when the dancer is danced. I don't know how well that will translate, but really what's implied in that phrase is an entering into the world of the archetypes that Jung talked about, not from the place of logos and head knowledge, but it is an embodiment of archetypal energies. Martha Graham's work in particular is so illustrative of that. So in a sense, long before I knew anything about archetypes, right, I was dancing archetypally because there is that involvement with them. And my life trajectory went from the dance studio, believe it or not, into biblical studies. So I wound up with an undergraduate degree in biblical studies. So I went from the world of dance and theater into the world of sacred with, you know, the wisdom traditions, and doing all kinds of work with that. And then from that, transitioned in my graduate studies, as you said, were really focused on bringing together all these worlds. And what I found is that Jung gave me a vocabulary for understanding the incredible transformational powers of psyche and soul and soma, right? When we bring all three of these together, it's not just putting things in these nice, neat silos. And that is something that I think this is not about. I want to be really clear. This is not about bashing the patriarchy. It is about really looking at where are their wounds and how do we clearly define what those wounds are so that we can begin to heal and to move forward, right? And so Jung, when I discovered Jung and in my graduate studies, what I really was working with was, how do I understand all these three worlds? The world of soma, dance, body, the world of the sacred and the spiritual, and then the world of the psychoanalytical, this incredible world of the unconscious that really is moving us, whether it doesn't ask for our permission, right? The unconscious moves us, and we can be aware of it or not aware of it, but regardless, it's still moving us and directing the trajectory of our lives.
Absolutely. And when you encountered the wounding, not only the wounding, of course, the patriarchal wounding in women, which were the archetypes that you would outline in terms of the wounded, splitted feminine, and how would you approach their healing or contributions for the healing process and this journeying of coming back to ourselves and of the embodied soul, of the healing of the feminine in this new era that I believe we are living and we are creating from, as Marian Woodman said, she said that there's never been such a time in the known history of humankind. So we are, every act of consciousness is creating a new conscious feminine and masculine in the world. So it's quite, it's huge, it's amazing. Of course, we have models, we have references, we have teachers, we have inspirations, but we have, each day we have to create consciousness through our own decisions and acts and awareness. So what would you say about what you have do also for yourself and in your teachings and in your work about this the archetypal wounding of the feminine. What would you say about this? I
Do
mean,
we have a few weeks? Okay,
I know.
so
What would you say would be most important? I mean, just
I think all right. I think a couple things relative to the archetypal wounding of the feminine, and I think the first step, as in anything, is recognizing and admitting the wound.
yes,
And I think that we're talking about an emerging consciousness, right? That's really difficult to articulate and define, because this is not just about a political movement, and it's not just about women getting a right to do whatever. It's so much deeper than that. And I think that there is this sense of coming to consciousness, of waking up to the myriad of ways in which women have been denied the ability to connect to their most authentic selves. So that it's understanding that growing up in patriarchal cultures that have existed for thousands of years, and again, let me make this caveat, because when we go here with the patriarchy, there tends to be this knee-jerk defensive reaction, and this is not simply about bashing the patriarchy. Had we had 3,000 years of matriarchy, we'd be looking at saying, okay, there are some corrections that need to be made, right? Too much of any one thing. It's like, you have two. Where do we find the balance? So I think one of the first steps is individually, and Jung talked about this and you just alluded to it. First of all, it's recognizing that before the collective can change, and we're in the midst of a time that, if you're familiar with Rick Tarnas's work, he talks about the time we're in right now. This moment in history is very similar, astrologically very similar to the 1960s, where you saw this tremendous upheaval, right? This tremendous movement. We're in those waters again, where the tectonic plates of the collective consciousness are shifting. But I think the importance is understanding, and Jung wrote about this, that the importance is not only focusing on the collective and the political and these big, the big movements out in the collective. It has to start with a deeply rooted interior commitment to looking at and waking up